Let's now invite Dr. Chan, Dr. Yvonne Chan, to bring us into the world of emotions and let us in on a few ways educators can support social-emotional development in children. Dr. Yvonne, please.
Thanks, Jaya. Before I dive deeper into the complex but interesting world of emotions, let me share a personal story with all of you here. I remember when I was working at the center, a toddler came in crying on her first day of school. The educator modeled kindness, comforted, and reassured the child. This is something that we use. Wipe away her tears with a tissue and was responsive to the child's needs. The child settled down in a few weeks. I could see the child learning better, smiling as she came to school. Unlike the initial stages, the teacher really did an awesome job. The story did not end there. In a few weeks later, another toddler came in crying. The toddler used a tissue and wiped off the tears and reassured the child. "Mommy will come later," she said. I'm sure you agree with me. Social emotional well-being is so important. In this moving account, the child was not only settling in well, she was helping others to do the same, thanks to the great job the teacher was doing. So why exactly is developing social emotional skills in children important? Schools in Singapore recognize that social emotional learning is important for the development of well-being and resilience in children. The benefits of social emotional learning are well researched. There is evidence demonstrating that an education that promotes social emotional learning yields positive results for students, adults, and school communities. One such organization, CASEL, which refers to the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, is an organization with researchers, educators, practitioners, and child advocates who are passionately committed to social emotional learning for all children. In Singapore, MOE adopts principles from CASEL, such as the core competency in the curriculum for social emotional learning in school. According to NIEC, children tend to see things from their own perspective. I'm sure you have experienced this with the children in the classroom. Firstly, they express their thoughts and emotions without considering the feelings of others. In addition, they are not aware of how their actions affect others. So children need to learn how to manage themselves and have control over their behavior. It is crucial to know the significance of social emotional learning in children's development, but more importantly, educators must remember to put theory into practice too. Now, let's see how many of us actually do that by taking a poll. Tell us, what are some of the practices that you do in your classroom to help the children? If you look at the sentences here, you will see the following. I ask them, how are you feeling? Do you ask the children in your classroom, how are you feeling? I help them understand the causes of their feeling. Do you talk to children about the causes of their feeling? Why are you feeling this way? What made you feel this way? I encourage children to describe their feelings using words. So what are some words that can help label children's emotions? I guide children to express themselves appropriately when they encounter unpleasant feelings. Or I suggest ways that they can regulate their feelings. Please share your responses so that we can have an idea of, what do you think you have been doing in the classroom so that we can learn more from you. Let's take a few minutes to complete. Which are these most frequently used in the classroom with the children under your care? Is it, how are you feeling? Is it, I help them understand the causes of their feeling? What is it? Hope all of you are managing to do the poll. Are you able to do it? Yes, thank you. Wow, thank you everybody for your wonderful responses. Really appreciate it. And you know, as you can see from the results, there are a number of ways and strategies that can be used to help children with their social emotional development. And I'm going to introduce to you one more. It's called R.U.L.E.R. What is R.U.L.E.R? R.U.L.E.R is a systematic approach to social emotional learning developed at the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. R.U.L.E.R is endorsed by CASEL as a strategy to use to help children. Personally, I have introduced this framework to participants at our workshops. The feedback was positive and participants shared the tool was helpful to them. In this strategy, if it sounds foreign or new to you, no worries, we will be unpacking it shortly. But did you know all of you have already been practicing R.U.L.E.R in the classroom, but you just didn't realize it? Remember the poll you did earlier? Well, surprise, surprise. Those were all part of the R.U.L.E.R strategy. Don't believe me? You will soon. Perhaps let me first unveil what R.U.L.E.R stands for. In the next few slides, I will explain each component of R.U.L.E.R and I will give you an example of how to use it in your classroom. Let's start with R, which stands for recognizing emotions in self and others. What is it you need to recognize? First, recognize the cues from your children. How is their posture? How is their energy level? Are they breathing fast? This helps identify how you are at that moment. Teachers need to recognize how the children feel so that you can help the child recognize how they feel. Remember the earlier poll? Well done. No one said none of the above. So now that we know what R is, how can we practice it? What question can teacher ask children when they are feeling upset? Let's look at this scenario. Alice and John are coloring at the table. Alice snatches colored pencil for John because she needed it. John was upset. How can you, as the teacher, help? The teacher can help John to recognize, understand, and regulate his feelings. In this case, you can ask him, John, what happened? Are you upset? This provides John an opportunity to recognize his feeling. Here, John responded, yes. The next thing to do is to understand the causes of these feelings. Ask yourself, what is causing the child to feel uncomfortable? Does it have to do with their friend or something that happened in the classroom? When we understand, we can then manage and help them respond in a better way. Remember our earlier scenario? The teacher can ask John, why are you feeling upset? What happened? By asking these questions, we give the child the space to tell us why they are feeling that way. It is important to allow them to know what is upsetting them. And in this case, John says, Alice took my pencil. Labeling. Labeling will help the child to identify the emotions they have. Labeling gives children the word to describe the feeling they have. Here, John can say, he is sad and angry. Understanding the feeling and the intensity of it is helpful. You can also use visual if the children cannot express themselves in words. Children can point at it. This is to help the adults understand how they are feeling. I'm pleased to inform you that later we are giving you a handout with different emoji that you can use in your classroom. E refers to expressing, and there are many ways to express our feelings. Here we see the teacher ask John, what could you have said to Alice to let her know how you feel? John shared, tell her to wait. I am still using it. In this way, children learn to respond appropriately despite how they feel. The final stage is to regulate. Teacher can help children by giving different regulation strategies. Children can choose the strategy they feel most comfortable with. Here we see the teacher asking John, now, what can you do to make your sadness and anger go away? John answers, I will go and drink water and come back when I feel better. Let's watch a video which demonstrates how R.U.L.E.R is used to help children recognize, understand, and regulate their emotions, during which I want all of you to think if and how R.U.L.E.R can be used differently with children of different age groups.
As you saw, Ella was feeling nervous about the new faces visiting her classroom. Watch how the teacher recognizes and labels Ella's feelings.
Hi! What's happening? You feeling a little nervous? Yes. You feeling a little nervous?
The teacher then helps Ella understand the causes of her feelings as she describes to her what is happening in the classroom.
Oh, this is some new faces, huh? You want me to tell you who's here? You ready? Let's see, Josh. He's got the camera. Do you remember we looked at his picture yesterday? I told you my friend was going to come. He really wants to see what we do in Pod 3. That's a microphone. Look at it. Can I touch this? It's got fuzz on it. You want to touch it? It feels just like puppy.
Next, the teacher lets Ella know that the way she is expressing her feelings is okay.
It feels like puppy. Do you want to touch it? You know you don't feel like it? Okay. All right. You want to just stay with me? Just hang out.
Finally, the teacher uses a number of different regulation strategies to help Ella feel less nervous and to feel more comfortable having visitors in the classroom. Notice how she redirects Ella's attention to her classmates, uses a calm tone of voice, and holds and rocks her as she sings.
So if you notice, the child in the video is quite young, a toddler. Younger children are not able to articulate as well. So you can allow them to respond by nodding or shaking their head. And this can be different if we use ruler, just like the example we shared a little earlier. Ruler can be used anytime, not just when the child approaches you with big feelings. You can use ruler during storytelling. Let me give you an example of the ruler approach in storytelling by using a book created locally by KKH called R.U.L.E.R Learn About Feelings. This book by KKH can be found in the National Library Board resource. And I like the book because the storyline and illustrations are localized. And having a book like this makes it easier for children to relate to it. In this story, the character Waga learned it has many different feelings. You can facilitate by asking children questions found in the ruler approach. For example, how is Waga feeling? Why do you think Waga is feeling that way? What word can you use to describe the feeling? How did Waga express anger? And what can Waga do to make itself feel better? Oh, I just realized I've been talking so much about children's emotions and feelings, but I've yet to ask you about yours. Can you please type your current emotions in the chat? Let us know how you are feeling now and today. Thank you. Wow, I see different people having different feelings. Some are feeling exhausted. Maybe it's the end of the week. Some are feeling tired and hungry. I hope you get to eat something very soon. Some are feeling energetic. Some are feeling drained. Some are feeling great. Yeah, maybe because it's Friday. All right. And some are feeling happy. Okay. Thank you so much for all your responses. So why are we asking you about how you feel? We are here to tell you that it's all right to feel the way you do. Whichever way it is, what is important to be self-aware. Always remember, before you take care of the children, as and when, you must make sure that you acknowledge and deal with those emotions. Put simply, there's only one teacher in the classroom sometimes, and there are many children. You are important. So in summary, it's okay for children to feel the way they do. What can we do to help them feel better? We can make use of the ruler strategy in your classroom. Hope you can try this out with your children in your classroom soon. Thank you. Over to you, Jaya.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yvonne. I believe our educators have gained useful insights on how to use the ruler strategy to enhance their day-to-day interactions with the children in the classroom, or actually even at home, right? I'm definitely going to use the ruler strategy and use them with my children as well. Next up, we have our Q&A segment. I think a lot of people are looking forward to this. So Dr. Yvonne, it'd be great if you can stay on. As for the audience, if you have any questions for our lecturer, do put them in the Q&A box. But before we move on to the Q&A segment, as always, we have something for you to take away, right? Simply scan the QR code shown on the screen or click on the link in the chat box to download the digital handout for a recap of the ruler strategy shared by Dr. Yvonne and some model questions you can use to promote social and emotional growth in children. Not only that, we have collaborated with NLB to curate a list of books you can read up to know more about social and emotional learning, as well as a list of suggested books for children. So all these can be found in the handout. But not to worry if you're unable to download it right now, we'll be sending this over to you by email as well. We'll also be uploading these resources onto our website after this session. So remember to share them with your other colleagues who are unable to join us today, and encourage them to join us during our next session and for more easy tips and best practices. All right, I've seen some questions coming in for our Q&A segment, and I'm really excited, for our panelists to come and share their views and expertise. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mrs. Yoke, Dr. Yvonne, and Ms. Sharon Tung for our Q&A segment. Let's give them a warm welcome, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Mrs. Yoke.
Everyone.
Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Yvonne. Thanks for your rich sharing. Really learn a lot from you and the very useful tips that you share with all of us. Thank you.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me.
All right, now that we have the panelists, let's jump straight into the question. So we have a first question here, which maybe Sharon can take. How can I help a child who doesn't even use words to express and unable to understand the teacher due to language barrier besides visual cues?
Okay, thank you, Jaya. Okay, for this question, I think first and foremost is very important to know the age group of the child. If the child is really in a younger age group and probably not able to articulate or express himself or herself, the teacher would really need to build a trusting and safe relationship with the child first. And then subsequently, what the teacher can actually do, or the educator can actually do, will be talk about the activities that you do, share and describe the objects or things that's in the environment to really help the child. So let's take, for instance, you have this very young child probably crying, okay? And then the educator can go to the child and say, oh, Sharon, I can see that you're crying. Oh dear, I think you have soiled yourself. Don't worry, I think you must be feeling very upset. Come, let's go and take a bath. And once you are dry off, we'll get dressed and we'll take a little nap. So apart from this strategy, educator can also use a variety of words. She can also use gestures to really help the child to understand and know or build up their emotions. Right, thank you. Probably I would just hear a little bit from Yvonne. Yeah, whether Yvonne has anything to add in.
Anything add on?
Well said, Sharon. I agree with you. But as the person is asking this question, I'm also thinking along the line of the level of prompts that you can use. Very often when a child is to respond in a certain manner, there is this hierarchy of prompts that you can consider using. Usually people will start off with verbal, and they are caught when they find that the verbal doesn't really help. And I like what Sharon have tried to unpack for us, even when we talk about the hierarchy of prompt. If verbal doesn't help, sometimes it is good to allow the child to gesture. And we were also talking about if gesture don't seem to also help, we are going to give you visuals of emojis later to take away to use in your classroom. So perhaps being able to point to those emojis will help you to understand what the child is feeling. And sometimes it's also to do with understanding, because if Jaya, can you please repeat the question again so that I ensure that I'm answering it correctly? Thank you.
Sure. The question states, just give me a moment now. How can I help a child who doesn't even use words to express, so meaning to say can't verbalize yet, right? To manage, give me a moment. Okay, because the question just jumped.
To manage the emotions, right?
Yeah. How,
okay.
Yeah, to understand, unable to understand the teacher due to language barrier besides visual cues. Yeah.
And I think you can also use visuals. All right. So she was saying that besides visual cues, right?
Yes, correct.
The teacher could also model. All right.
Okay.
Sometimes by showing that gesture on her face. She can help the child, relate. Are you feeling sad? And helping the child even to use his way of answering, like nodding, as we shared earlier, to share how the child is feeling. And sometimes you can also make use of, if you're helping the child in terms of self-regulation, yes, you can also use prompts like, showing the child, a video, or even modeling in terms of, helping the child even to know that, you are making a conscious effort and you seek to understand and you care and you want to know why and what is bothering the child. So yeah, perhaps that is what I would like to add on. And I see someone type in the chat. Wow, thank you. And we have Rahayu who talk about, yes, the hierarchy of prompts. Yes, thank you, Rahayu. And I hope that you have been using it in your class and it has been helping you. Thank you.
So if I may add, as I listen in closely to what Sharon and Yvonne is sharing, I thank you for the question, because the question shows that as an educator, you want to help every child. And there are differences in a child, whether it's of an age group or developmental, developmental trajectory. So I take it that the language is something that you observe is a barrier, and besides visual cues. So I think Yvonne and Sharon had shared some tips. I was just thinking about, from Yvonne and Sharon's perspective, for a child like this, would it also be helpful, besides of course building that relationship, it's really about having the child with that more physical, like assuring the child, because that is also the way to let the child know that you recognize the emotions, and that there is this relation that you want to build, relationship you build with the child. And also there are things like trying to regulate in your own way, teach the child about deep breathing. I hear that is also useful for children to also understand their emotion and to self-soothe in a way eventually. What do you all think about that?
Yeah. Right.
Is that something that EC educators are also practicing on the ground?
Probably, I will just add on to what Mrs. Loke has said.
Yes.
Actually, yes, it's quite true. Especially during these pandemic times, right? We do have children when they are adjusting back, when they are coming back to school. They do feel a certain level of stress and anxiety as well, as young as 2 to 5 years old, or even up to 6 years old. So actually, I've got a little tip here. Okay, so recently, I actually chanced upon this book called "Where in the World is Peace" by Valerie Chen. She's actually an author based in Singapore. So just sharing with the educators here, this book is quite suitable for 3 to 4 years old. Okay, and it actually helps the child to equip them with strategies like breathing, like what Mrs. Loke have said, mindfulness and affirmations to actually help them to cope with all the strong emotions, like whether it's sadness, anxiety, or stress. And teacher can actually use, all these things, or like elicit responses from the class, literally on what they can actually do when they experience that kind of emotion, and they can actually form up a wall of useful strategies based on it. Yeah. So probably Yvonne would like to tell us if there's any more. Yeah, thanks.
Personally, I think if KKH did come up with a series of books, and the book is targeted at helping children with different aspects of the 5 competency of social emotional learning. And they use the character Waga, like just like what I shared with you earlier, and and they will walk through the different experiences Waga go through, and what are some strategies you can do to help the children. And since Sharon was talking about COVID-19, and we are very glad that we have been resilient in the last 2 years, they actually came up with a book that talks about Waga Waga learn about COVID-19, and in the book it talks about strategies that you can use to help make yourself feel better. And I'm pleased to inform you, all these books are available in the National Library Board resource. So it is online. So Sharon, I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. I thought it was very useful. Just in case you missed the title just now introduced by Sharon, it is Where in the World is Peace by Valerie Cheng. And I thought the wall of strategies is very useful, which we can use, not only in the classroom, we can use for your children as well. Yeah, and not to worry if you missed the titles and all. We have a list of the books, right, curated for this topic. So you can take a look at it at a later point in time. All right. The next question we have here says, what are some appropriate ways to express anger and manage anxious feelings for young children? Yeah, I repeat the question. What are some appropriate ways to express anger and manage anxious feelings for young children?
Okay, so Sharon, I'll start and you can add on your experiences, all right? We learn together as a community of learners. So the first question, Jaya, you were saying is, how can we express anger?
Yes, correct.
For very young children, I think, it is a very big feeling in a very small body. And sometimes they do not have the language to verbally express how they feel. So some of them will throw tantrum. Some of them, will express by using, their language that they know what to do, and that is, by using their body, and sometimes some actions that may not be very, very appropriate. So I think these are ways that educators can identify, are ways that the child is really trying to overcome those very big feelings within themselves. So I think what an educator can do is really to be by the side of the child, ensure that the environment is safe, and allow the child to calm down. And when the child feels better, to have a conversation with the child. And that is for children who are younger. For children who are older, I think they do have that ability to have that language to express how they feel. So I think the educator can have questions, thought-provoking questions, to help the children to think about what is happening. And R.U.L.E.R is one of the approach, since we are talking about R.U.L.E.R today, to get the children even to think about what is happening, what is causing them to feel that way, and empower them even to come up with some possible strategies. What can you do to make yourself feel better? All right, so these are just some of the thoughts that came to mind. Sharon, would you like to add on? Thank you.
Right, thank you, Yvonne. I would just add on to what you said, based on what you said about when you talk about asking questions and when the child has calmed down. So I'll probably add on, in an early childhood classroom, actually, it's quite normal and quite usual at times to really find children, having misunderstandings. Like if the child is playing and, I look at you and I say, how come you're laughing at me? And I feel bad about it, Yeah, exactly. So these are some kind of like quite common scenarios. So I think just to add on to what Yvonne has said, definitely educator can actually ask the child questions. Why are you feeling this way? All right, just like Yvonne has said, it's like you understand the reasons for his emotions. And then after that, the educator can actually point out the facts about the situation to the child, that he has misunderstood. You think that Sharon is actually laughing at you, but she's actually laughing at the toppling towel, that she's constructing probably with Yvonne, and she's not laughing at you. And then later on, you can discuss strategies on how, the child can actually regulate the feelings so that there's no, the misunderstanding can be reduced. For example, what can you do to make this feeling go away? Would you want to talk to Sharon about it? So at least it helps the child to regulate the emotions as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne and Sharon, for sharing. Oh, I think Mrs. Loke, you have something to add on, but I think you're muted. Maybe you want to That's all right.
Oh, sorry,
Yes, no
Jaya.
worries.
I thought it's very interesting, and I thought it's part of what you're sharing, Yvonne, about R.U.L.E.R, the first R, which is recognize, right? So I think there's also maybe the perspective that in helping the child to recognize, and we as professionals working with the child to recognize, is it also to give the child some space to feel the emotions the child is feeling, and not just step in to try to, to kind of like reason with the
Yeah,
child. I think there's
correct.
a sense from professionals that it's also good to allow the child to experience and affirm the child is okay to feel those emotions. What do you think?
Yes, I do agree. And you know, when the child have very big feelings and they are expressing themselves, sometimes they are also not in the right frame of mind to listen to what you have to say to them. So you know, allowing them even to cool down, I think it is also very important. There's a time and place for everything that we do, and I think in this instance, you know, that allowing the child even to you know, have his own personal space to feel the way he feel. You may be pleasantly surprised. I choose to be optimistic, Mrs. Loke, that sometimes you may be pleasantly surprised. You would see the child actually finding ways to calm himself. If we are too fast to jump in, sometimes maybe there would not be the opportunity even for the child to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So on this note, I think it's amazing the work that EC educators do, because your skills of observation, first of all, I think it's the relationship you seek to build with the children, to know the children, at the same time to observe and see when to go in. And when you go in to support the child, Yvonne's approach, the R.U.L.E.R approach, seems to be able to be something to help us along as well. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you.
Yes. Sharon, do you have anything to add, Sharon?
No, I'm good with what you have said, actually, and also what Mrs. Song have said. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. So now we have the next question. Okay, this is quite interesting. Do children with developmental needs learn about social emotional skills the same way as typically developing children? Do we need to tweak the ways we teach SEL in this case? So maybe Sharon, you want to start first, and then Yvonne can probably add on.
Sure. Okay, so well, basically, I would say when you talk about whether you need to tweak the ways to actually teach social emotional learning to children with developmental needs, actually, yes, you would need to. However, it really depends on their developmental needs. Okay, so I think first of all, it's important for the educator to know what is their current developmental milestone. All right, not of the developmental age, or sorry, I mean of their developmental age, but not the chronological milestone. And then subsequently, the teacher can actually work on, like, what is the next phase or next step in their developmental milestones that they can help. So I give an example. So let's say, for example, you have a child, 5 or 6 years old with autism, okay, and social emotional milestones is probably at 2 years old. So therefore, you will then need to work with the child on the social emotional needs of a 3-year-old, all right, instead of according to the age. Then what happened is usually the social skills remain the same in that milestone, but you can do very explicit teaching. So explicit teaching in the sense that, it can be, for instance, helping the child to make friends. So the teacher will literally teach the child, like, step 1, you have to smile. And then step 2, say, hi, Jaya, And then step 3, let's say if Jaya ignores me, it's okay, we can find another friend, and then we repeat the procedure with the child all over again so that they can be invited to play. So just to add on, a lot of role play, stimulation exercises, and also customized social stories. For example, I can actually do a teacher make story to talk about how Jaya can actually make friends, and that will actually help the child to learn social skills, as well as learn about acceptable behavior. Yeah, so probably Yvonne can also add on a little bit more. Thanks.
I'm just reminded of something that I learned. I think it is a privilege not only just to learn from your colleagues at your workplace, but also with community partners. And in this workshop that we run collaboratively previously with KKH, I learned that when you are working with children, you can also help the child to understand using these 3-step strategy in that situation. And that is, firstly, help the child to understand in that situation what is other people doing and what are you supposed to do in that situation. So and the second step is actually, you know, to help the child then to also know how to regulate by using strategies to regulate themselves. And the last is to problem solve. So if you are in that situation, what can you do instead of responding in a manner that is not acceptable? So you know, it came to mind that, you know, this is something perhaps that you can also do in helping the child, because I know that sometimes when you talk about emotions, it's also because the child may not know what is, you know, that is really happening, like what you were sharing in your example. So you can ask the child to stop and look what is happening, and then you can tell the child, you know, what is it that, you know, you can do, you know, to make yourself feel better, or, you know, what can you do more appropriately in that situation, instead of just, you know, being you know, very upset in that situation. So just sharing another thought came to mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon and Yvonne. We are really heartened with all the questions that we received. We have received quite a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we don't have much time left. We can take one last question, and let me read this question out. The strategy used in school isn't in line with what parents are doing at home, right? How can parents support their child's social emotional learning? Or what can we do, you know, to raise awareness of child's SEL in families?
So is the question open to anyone,
yes,
right?
Open to anyone.
Okay.
Yes.
We will take turns, Sharon. I'll start and you can add on, please. Okay. Personally, I feel that parents, I choose to believe that every parent is doing their best for their children. And as educators in the field, I think we are very blessed because we have the opportunity to learn even what is age appropriate, and, you know, perhaps what are some strategies we can use even with the children in the classroom. So I think having a good relationship with parents and finding opportunities even to share, making the intention known that it is for the best of the child's well-being, and, you know, seeking them in, you know, respectfully in asking them, you know, to help you so that together, collaboratively, you can help the child. I think could be a perspective that you can take. In addition, I know that many centers do have outreach, like they do have workshops, they do have guest speakers where they invite parents in, and that is the way to share and to work together and to help the child, you know, reach their fullest potential. Sharon, what do you think? Yeah.
Well, totally agree with what Yvonne has said. Yes. Well, just to add on a little bit more, to add that little fun and gist into it, I was also thinking, you know, like you could have a social day or social awareness day, get the children and parents to come to school and let the parents be child for a day. All right. And let them experience, and if there's anything that they are doing, all right, that really has this social emotional context in it, and the teacher could just you know, really demonstrate the skills that they actually use in school, and I think that would really convince the parents a lot more, and they are also learning collaboratively with them. Yeah. What about Mrs. Loh? What do you think?
Yes. What do you think, Mrs. Loh?
As I listen in totally, I think we are all spot on to say that when we're early childhood educators, working with families is actually integral to the work that we do, and we want to be able to complement each other. So I take it that at the centers, you all will also have your outreach activities like what Yvonne said, and Sharon injected some fun. It's like let the parents also experience what is it like to be in preschool center when you're actually interacting with their peers all the time, and emotions will be experienced, right? And I think part of the conversation with parents is also the fact that in the early years in preschool, it is not about just getting them ready for primary school. As a group of professionals, we know that actually social and emotional development and the building of foundation, if we don't get that right for the children, and the children don't have opportunities to develop that foundation, actually the new learning that they will have to experience when they go into primary school is even more challenging. So I think the handshake that we must have with parents is also to tell them and let them experience as well, because the good work that you do. For example, I feel that when I interact with my students and they share with me stories that when they meet parents, they engage their parents to tell them what are the things that they see their child growing in terms of their emotional management, their ability to interact well with others. So when you have success stories like that, that will also kind of like let the parents know that, this good piece of work continue, because that will give that stability for the child to also take on new learning, whether it's in formal school or in the home as well. So I think it's really to continue to have that conversation with parents. I think that's critical. That is a very good question. It's about parents as part of the professional work that we do. Thank you.
Really, thank you so much for all your input. And yeah, as a parent, I totally agree with all this, and I appreciate, when my the childcare teachers actually get in touch with me to update me not only about academic, whether they can read or whatever, but they tell me about the social emotional skills that they see progress in. And during parent-teacher conference, when discussed about it, I thought it's really very useful as a parent to know, and how we can also support our child in a home context. All right, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment, but rest assured, the rest of the questions that you have posted on the Q&A, we will answer them on our website after the event. So yeah, keep a lookout for the answers on our website, all right? So thank you very much. On that note, Mrs. Yoke, Sharon, and Dr. Yvonne for the amazing insights. And Mrs. Yoke, would you like to close up the Q&A session at this point in time?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is one of the most number of questions that we receive in any one webinar. So it's really, thank you. Thank you for the high level of interest in the sharing. So once again, thank you, Dr. Yvonne, for your sharing and insights about the importance of social and emotional learning for young children. You have highlighted and affirmed that all EC educators would already be practicing most of such effective strategies to help children acquire the social emotional competencies. What a great validation of the good work. So thank you, everyone. I think at the heart of what you all do is really about developing such competencies in children. But now, Yvonne has shared something else, right? The tips shared by Yvonne, the use of the R.U.L.E.R approach, helps to then holistically capture all the good practices to enable the child to recognize, to understand, to label, to express, and to regulate emotions to support their social emotional development. This will certainly provide a good structure for practitioners, all of us at the ground, to systematically do so. So Yvonne and Sharon, thank you for the timely reminder about developing social emotional competencies in young children, that this forms the foundation to their holistic development and is key to our professional work. It has been said that emotion is the color and music of life, as well as the tie that binds people together. Now, emotions influence our well-being, shapes our thinking, and the actions we take. And hence, we must do our part to nurture emotional health in the early years. At the heart of the nurturance of young children is to build warm and trusting relationships with them. A safe environment to enable them to express emotion, to understand emotions, and to help them manage their emotions, which shape their behavior in interactions with others. So, as EC educators, you are significant adults in the children's life. In enabling them to be self-aware, to self-regulate, and hence manage their emotions over time, they will gain confidence in themselves and in interacting with others and the world around them, with guidance, with encouragement, with support and role modeling for you, the teachers whom they look up to. The young children will start to develop the emotional anchor needed to confidently navigate life challenges. Indeed, as Yvonne also reminded us in her sharing, as EC educators, it is equally important that we exercise self-care to build our own emotional health and resilience, which in turn will anchor us in keeping our composure and to always role model positive behaviors around children. So I noticed quite a lot of you say that you're a bit tired at the end of the week. So plan something good for yourself. Carve out time for yourself this weekend, okay? Yeah? So remember, experiencing emotions and how we handle them can be both taught to young children, but also caught. So your caring influence will go a long way in developing social emotional competencies in young children and to enable them to explore the world with confidence, and with that, to take on new learning. It now leaves me to thank you on behalf of NIEC for being here today. May you go away with new ideas and renewed energy to engage the little ones when they awake from their nap time. Take care and keep well. Remember to rest, find time for yourself this weekend. Have a good weekend ahead. Over to you now, Jaya.
Thank you, Mrs. Loke. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you to our panelists as well. I hope that it was an enjoyable and useful session for all of you, and that you'll be able to put into practice what we have learned from today's sharing.